head of the intelligence community, Jim Clapper, has acknowledged that I think they underestimated what had been taking place in Syria.
Well, the buck does not stop with the president, apparently. Mr. Obama shifting the blame on ISIS. You'll recall what he said there Sunday night on CBS News 60 Minutes, where the president names James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, as the person underestimating ISIS. This notion of passing the blame has actually set up more questions for the president. For example, what did our president know about ISIS, and why has he not fired Clapper if he was in fact not briefed about it? Here to provide some answers, political analyst and author of this new book, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation, Dick Morris. By the way, the book is now Amazon's #1 bestseller. Dick, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you, J.D. I think that it's worth noting that Obama missed 58% of the national intelligence briefings during each term as president. I think 1% difference between the two terms. Now, when you miss an intelligence briefing, it takes some effort. It's not like you have to go get in a suit and a tie and go downstairs to the Situation Room and, get briefed. They come to you. It's usually first thing in the morning. It's usually an aide. It's always an aide who comes in. And Clinton used to listen to it while he was brushing his teeth, while he was shaving, still in his pajamas. It's something where they come to the president, and to miss the briefing, you literally have to tell the guy, go home, stay away. And when he's traveling, the aide is with him and giving him the briefing. Now, Obama claims he checked it on his iPad, but there's a huge difference there. If you're reading a briefing, first of all, you skim over it, and secondly, you can't ask the machine questions. You can't say, well, what about this? Or is that human intelligence, or is that signals intelligence? Can you follow this up? Listen, when you come by tomorrow, give me more details on this. I want to know more about it. Or when did this first appear? You can't ask those questions of a machine. I mean, you can write it, but, it takes some doing. So not having a national intelligence briefing, if you're president, is essentially not doing the job. One cute story, George W. Bush went into the gridiron dinner once, and he said, my aides have worried that I'm news stories that I'm not that bright. So every morning they give me an intelligence briefing.
Well, jokes aside, this is a very serious situation. And while you were offering your answer about intelligence briefings, we had a screen grab from the Daily Caller noting that President Obama has spent more time on the golf course than he has in these security briefings. But I'm trying to understand this, Dick. In your new book, Power Grab, you lay out a definite scenario, an activist president trying to make political changes for the left. Why no energy devoted to national security? Why this seeming disconnect?
Well, it doesn't really matter to him in that context. The goal of foreign policy is just to be left alone so that he can make his transformations within the United States. In fact, the only real point of congruence here is his courting of the Islamic vote in the United States and his opening our borders, which he did this month, to 100,000 Syrian refugees coming into the United States. By the way, J.D., not to take you off the subject, but you remember when I was here a couple of months ago, I predicted that Obama would try to confer refugee status on those children coming in from Central America. Well, he just did yesterday. That's an open invitation for more to come, and a promise, really, of amnesty once they get here.
Well, you are reminding us of something very newsworthy, Dick, and I appreciate it. If the president has unilaterally designated these people as refugees, that exacerbates and accelerates the program, not to the common good, in my opinion, but also it's evidence of what's happening politically rather than get out the vote, trying to bring in a new vote, as columnist Selwyn Duke pointed out a couple of months ago.
But you're wrong to call it unilateral. He's doing it with the United Nations, not Congress, but the UN. In fact, you could argue that his designating as refugees people who are not fleeing famine or disease or war, just crime, in their own country really permits the United Nations to demand that the United States open its borders to people from those countries. The flow of refugees is controlled by the UN, not by the U.S. The UN designates people as refugees, and then the U.S. agrees to take 100,000 of them, to take 200,000 of them. And by agreeing with the UN High Commissioner, who has been pressing for a year now to make the case that these kids coming in are not illegal immigrants, they're refugees, he really opens the door to them.
We can't amplify what you're talking about here, because you're saying our president has basically handed this to the UN, that the UN now calls the shots on people coming into this country by expanding this refugee status.
Essentially, yes. Now, the U.S. can veto the admission of refugees, but it doesn't, and it won't under Obama. And these refugees arrive legally. They have legal status and can go on to become citizens, just like the Vietnamese boat people did. But all of the previous refugees were fleeing a war, in most cases one in which the United States did a lot of damage to their country, like Iraq or Vietnam or those countries. But here you're dealing with people who are just simply fleeing drug gangs and a criminal epidemic. And if you apply that standard, hey, all of Mexico could, certainly North Mexico could come here.
Well, mindful of that fact and the fact that the president has done this basically out in the open, we turn to something else that may be going on behind closed doors. Is the president secretly trying to derail Hillary's efforts to run for the presidency in 2016?
I think he's doing it lightly. I think that if it's convenient, if it's able to be done without tearing the party apart, he's kind of, I would call it probes, call it a reconnaissance in force. He needs a candidate, though, and Elizabeth Warren is the only one who could defeat Hillary. And unless he can get Warren to start waffling on her declaration of not running, then I'm not sure that he'll ever be successful, and I don't see him tearing the party apart over it. Obama's goal is a one-party country.
Ooh, that's a scary thing, and you write about it in Power Grab. Dick, so sorry to cut you off. We're up against the clock. We appreciate your insights. Now, a Newsmax Now headline update.
The first patient diagnosed with Ebola inside the United States is now in critical condition at a Dallas hospital. Doctors at Texas Health Presbyterian admit when the unidentified patient first arrived, Ebola was not the first thing on their minds. This is the first diagnosed case of Ebola outside of Africa. There are new reports today of another embarrassing moment for the Secret Service. An armed security contractor with a criminal record rode in an elevator with our president earlier this month. In Pennsylvania, police say they found pipe bombs stashed away at a camp while searching for suspected cop killer Eric Matthew Freen. And finally, in New Jersey, Governor Christie is watching his poll numbers drop. The latest Quinnipiac poll says only 46% of respondents approve of the governor's job performance. I'm Olga Villaverdi. We'll have another update at the top of the hour.